Many of the most infamous Dark Lords of the Sith were conquerors, bloodthirsty warlords who built great empires and subjugated swaths of the galaxy. Few of those Sith Lords, however, were able to keep their conquered territory for long. Sith empires had a remarkably short shelf life, and there were only a few in galactic history that managed to stay together for significant periods of time. But there were a few Sith Lords who focused more on the subtleties of statecraft than mindless bloodshed, and they managed to achieve far greater power than many Sith conquerors. One such Sith was Marka Ragnos, a Dark Lord of the first Sith Empire and the architect of the Golden Age of the Sith. In this video, we'll be telling his story.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The first Dark Lords of the Sith ruled over the ancient Sith Empire. Established by an exiled Dark Jedi led by Ajunta Pal in 6900 BBY, this empire ruled the worlds of the Stygian Caldera in the Outer Rim, far from the borders of the Republic. Under the rule of great conquerors like Tulak Hord, the Sith Empire expanded from its initial strongholds on Ziost and Korriban to encompass over 120 worlds, plus a few remote colonies beyond the Stygian Caldera. These worlds were split between 10 fiefs, each ruled over by a Sith Lord. The lords who ruled these fiefs sat on a Sith council, advising the Dark Lord of the Sith and their Shadow Hand. During the Sith Empire's first millennium, from the reign of Ajunta Pal to the death of Tulak Hord, it was constantly expanding and subjugating new worlds, enriching itself and its rulers. But by the late 5000s BBY, it had begun to stagnate. The Stygian Caldera, a ring of nebulae that disrupted hyperspace travel, prevented the Sith from expanding beyond a certain point. Once the Sith had fully subjugated the worlds within the Caldera, they had no new vectors for conquest, leading to instability within the Empire. It was in this time of instability that Marka Ragnos was born. From birth, he stood out from his fellow Sith for two reasons. His skin was obsidian black, a rare trait that was held as an omen of greatness among the Sith, and he was also a half-breed, descended from one of the exiled Dark Jedi who founded the Sith Empire. Born into the Kisai priest caste, young Ragnos quickly climbed through the ranks, learning the secrets of the dark side and becoming a Sith Lord. In his day, Ragnos was one of the most powerful lords on the Sith Council, rivaled only by Lord Simus. In 5100 BBY, when the reigning Dark Lord of the Sith died, Ragnos and Simus both aspired to take the Sith throne and fought a duel in the Valley of the Dark Lords in Korriban. Marka Ragnos triumphed and decapitated Simus, but Simus's head clung to life through Sith alchemical techniques. Simus persisted long enough for his servants to stick his head in a crystal sphere that kept him alive. However, as a head in a jar, Simus was essentially out of the running for the throne of Ziost, and Marka Ragnos became the new Dark Lord. After securing his place as the Dark Lord of the Sith, Marka Ragnos set about restoring the Sith Empire to its former glory. Many years of stagnation had made the Empire increasingly unstable. With no external foes to conquer, the Sith Lords had begun to plot against each other. Such infighting was the way of the dark side, but it threatened to rip the Sith Empire apart. Ragnos was no fool, however. Before a civil war could begin, he took steps to resolve the issue. He began by eliminating all threats to his power, declaring all Sith Lords he thought might openly challenge him enemies of the Sith Empire. He slaked his subjects' lust for blood by unleashing them against each other in contained but ruthless campaigns, which united the Empire against small splinter factions instead of tearing it apart. Once all who might have openly opposed him were exterminated, Ragnos turned to his lesser rivals on the Sith Council, who schemed to assassinate him and take his place. Ragnos carefully manipulated his adversaries, sowing division among them and watching as they destroyed each other. Once his rivals were all dead, Marka Ragnos appointed new Sith Lords to the Council, including Lord Simus, his former adversary. Simus went on to faithfully advise Ragnos for decades, always putting the interests of the Empire first. Ragnos kept the Lords of the Council on a tight leash, assassinating any he deemed potentially schismatic. Through the Sith Council, Marka Ragnos ruled the Empire with an iron fist, quashing all dissent. Though harsh, his reign kept the Sith Empire united, allowing it to grow more prosperous than it had ever been before. So began the Golden Age of the Sith. Over the course of his century-long reign, Ragnos became one of the most powerful Sith of all time. No one could match his skill in the use of the dark side, and few dared to challenge him in combat. As Dark Lord, he crafted an alchemically enhanced sword and black scale gauntlets infused with the power of the dark side, which granted him tremendous strength. He also created a powerful scepter that could absorb force power from dark side nexuses, stripping them of their dark side aura in the process. With this scepter, Marka Ragnos could give non-force sensitives force powers, unleash terrible bursts of dark side power, and even reanimate corpses. With an arsenal like that, it's no wonder he went largely unchallenged. By 5000 BBY, the Sith Empire was stronger than it had ever been before. The Sith Council boasted some of the greatest Sith Lords seen in centuries, including Naga Sadow, Ludo Kresh, Shah Dakan, Horak Mul, Dor Galram, and of course, Simus. However, the prosperity of the Sith Empire came under threat when the unthinkable happened. 100 years after he came to power, Marka Ragnos died, apparently of natural causes. Marka Ragnos had created a golden age of the Sith by consolidating power for himself. When he died, however, he left a huge power vacuum in his wake. The infighting that Ragnos had repressed flared up again before the Sith had even finished with the Dark Lord's funeral, with Sith Lords Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh vying for Ragnos' place. Together, the two undid everything Ragnos had achieved, destroying the whole Sith Empire in less than a year. That, however, is a story for another time, namely when we discuss Sadow and Kresh in detail next week. Death was not the end for Marka Ragnos. The Dark Lord's Spectre persisted, tethered to the world of the living through his scepter. He was limited in where he was able to manifest, however. Though he was able to speak to the Sith Lords assembled at his tomb during his funeral, warning them of the dangers the Empire faced, he was unable to intervene as they plotted against each other on Ziost and other worlds. As the Empire he had built collapsed, Ragnos could do little but sense what was happening from his tomb. The spirit of Marka Ragnos was summoned several times in the millennia that followed. In 3996 BBY, a pair of powerful Sith amulets allowed Ragnos to appear to Exarchon and Ulic Qel-Droma in a vision, during which he anointed them the new Dark Lords of the Sith. Nearly 4000 years later, Ragnos also appeared to Darth Plagueis when he visited Korriban. Ragnos declared Plagueis unfit to be the Dark Lord of the Sith, outraged at Plagueis' plans to discard ancient Sith traditions in favor of a more scientific outlook on the dark side. Plagueis responded by asserting that ghosts weren't real and bombarding Ragnos with questions, infuriating the long-dead Dark Lord so much that he chose to return to his tomb. In 14 ABY, after the Sith were wiped out in the Battle of Endor, a cult called the Disciples of Ragnos formed. Led by Dark Jedi Tavion Axmus, the Disciples of Ragnos planned to resurrect Marka Ragnos and bring about a new golden age of the Sith. After acquiring Ragnos' scepter, Axmus traveled to darkside nexuses all over the galaxy, draining force energy from them. When all was said and done, she traveled to Korriban and used the energy gathered in the scepter to summon and empower Ragnos' spirit. Ragnos possessed her body, but then Jedi Knight Jaden Kor, a member of the new Jedi Order, challenged him. The two fought a lengthy battle, and in the end, Kor managed to destroy Ragnos' scepter, vanquishing the Dark Lord's spirit in the process. Marka Ragnos' golden age of the Sith was ultimately the only one of its kind. Though later Sith empires would surpass the original empire in power and magnitude, never again would the Sith remain stable and unchallenged for as long as they did under Ragnos. But what do you think? Are you excited to hear the tale of Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh, the last great Sith Lords of the original Sith Empire? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.